What's up, everyone? Hopefully, you are staying safe and healthy amongst this quarantine that we have going on currently. I decided to do a bit of a personal background video about myself, giving a little insight as to who I am and a little bit of insight as to where I would like to where I plan to go with the channel. But I'm obviously open to any outside opinions, if anything you'd like for me to talk about, go in depth about, etc. So academically, I'm going to do a past, present, and future style with this. So my undergrad, my bachelor's is in interdisciplinary studies, but it essentially is a sports psychology degree, or as I've coined it, a sport and exercise psychology degree, primarily based around the academic disciplines of psychology and exercise science, physical education, and a little bit of business in there. But for my school, I originally went there for exercise science and physical education, but I eventually decided to go more towards the psychological route, which is actually where I got a minor in psychology as a result of that. And for my graduate program, I am currently in a professional counseling program at the master's graduate level for earning my credentials as an LPC, that being a licensed professional counselor in both Missouri and Illinois. And the reason why I went into that is because for me, it was wanting to study the elements of human connection, self-discovery, and vulnerability. Because in our modern times, we seem to have lost that to aspects such as social media, where everything primarily goes on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. I would say vulnerability, because we're human, we're not perfect, but and like we are while we are not perfect, we should not we should allow ourselves to we should be vulnerable at the very least with ourselves, and be able to learn and grow from that, and even use that as a form of self-discovery to help ourselves grow and develop in as healthy and productive a manner as possible. So some avenues I am looking into going into for counseling would be sport and exercise psychology, or sports psychology as it is named. I'm considering marriage and family counseling, because a lot of times people come together, people get married for various reasons, but at the same time, as long as we can keep those marriages healthy, happy, and productive, that's all that matters. And even when it comes to when if someone decides they want to have kids, there might be some issues within the family, so helping to keep that family as productive as possible, as productive and stable, I would say, as possible. And then I'm also considering substance abuse and addiction, because a lot of times we as human beings, we are looking for something that usually will provide us pleasure or happiness, or some sort of therapeutic positive emotion, or um, sensation, if you will. And a lot of times, while that's a good thing, sometimes people can get addicted to it, to the point of where it prevents them from living a typical productive life. So being able to help people to manage those addictions, and maybe even help understand addiction a little bit better, is something that I find interest in. And then moving forward for a doctoral program, my plan is to get a doctorate in clinical psychology, with an emphasis in sports psychology, either sports psychology, because either you're working with athletes, or anyone to help aid them in elements of confidence, cooperation, etc. And while sports psych is geared more towards athletics, everything I've learned in the sports psychology realm can be adapted to a myriad of different fields and professions. So it may be useful worldwide, and I'd say discipline wide as well. I've considered neuropsychology, in terms of understanding how essentially our cognition, our thinking affects human behavior, i.e., how people say, our thoughts become our actions. It's almost like I'd like to understand the why for that, understanding why people think a certain way, and maybe why certain behaviors are acted out as a result. And then health psychology, where it's the psychological processes of it's the psychological processes of behaviors, in terms of in terms of physical health and illness, and like human health varies in various cultures. So like in the East, it's primarily been more holistic and natural in nature, as to where in the West it is typically more artificial and more of a band-aid cure, where they're more just trying to mask the symptoms instead of actually either finding a cure, or in general taking a more of a natural approach to it. So while that I'm like, well, that is a while that is a timeline perspective of my educational background as to where I'm going. My goal is simply just I want to be able to help people as much as possible and help them be productive both with others and on their own. Certification wise, through NASM, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, I have my certification as a personal trainer that I acquired back in August of 2018. I have a secondary specialization as a behavior change specialist that I earned rather as of June 2019, which was primarily based on helping clients maintain healthy behaviors, so like motivation, program adherence, things of that nature. Because when you're trying to make a change, typically when it's something new, it's kind of hard to maintain initially. So I figured having my BCS along with my psychological background, honestly, it works. They work together. And then I have a bit of I would consider a mini specialization in mental toughness, which was primarily focused around confidence, concentration, coping skills of coping under pressure, and motivation. So I would say it's almost like an extension of my BCS, where it's just all about these psychological elements of being able to maintain like your self-esteem, your self-confidence, helping you to keep focus amongst all of the distractions that might be around. And then also I have through Trainology, I took one of their courses it was their T2 course is the best name for that, but it was primarily around exercise progression and fitness program and implementation, essentially how to progress through various exercises as a person, or as you get better at the different variations, and then being able to implement that into your training programs. So a little bit about me just my own personal background. I play collegiate roller hockey for Lindenwood University. I've been doing that since the fall of 2016. So coming into this coming fall will be in terms of eligibility, it will be my 4th year, but it will be overall my 5th year in the program. My favorite type of exercise would be weight training, primarily because life always gets progressively easier the stronger you are. It also always presents a personal challenge, like you getting a sense of accomplishment and mastery, whether you're lifting more weight or performing more sets, or you're able to maintain your endurance for longer with a certain weight or a certain resistance on you. And also it's essential for several goals. I dare I say even all of them, whether it's weight loss, hypertrophy, like wanting to build muscle, strength development, etc. Because in terms of the human movement system, your muscle is like the muscle tissue in your body is what allows you to produce that movement. And last one is a little bit of background as to why I got into psychology and exercise science. And psychology was just because I needed it for my strength and conditioning minor during my bachelor's, my tenure as a bachelor student, my undergrad. But then I had to retake the general psychology course, and that started to garner a lot of my interest in terms of the different branches of psychology, from social, abnormal, what else was there? Motivation and emotion, child psychology. So I wanted to learn a lot more about the backgrounds of the different branches of psychology that existed. And that's also where counseling also kind of came into play, because again, with human connection and vulnerability, when you start learning about psychology and how people think on an individual level, you might learn that some of them might, a lot of things, some of the things that people might be struggling with or might have issues with may come from their past, because simply put, they've had various experiences throughout their lives, and when you meet them at whatever point in time that you do, how, like how they are is learned based on experiences. And then exercise science, I had two previous health stories where I had significant success. One being just from back in high school when I was 18, I just had a early morning weight training class, but my clothes fit my body better. Daily life tasks were a lot easier. Overall, like, I didn't know it at the time, because for me, it was just getting the credit. But I saw that there was a lot of benefit there, and I started thinking, maybe I should consider this for the future. And then about a year, I want to say about a year later, I had my own weight loss experience of about 60 pounds, where I really didn't know what I was doing. I just figured it was get in the gym, go balls to the wall, and just sweat as much as I could. And mind you, I essentially took the starvation route to that, which was not a smart idea. And I since focused more on getting stronger and developing that strength. But I also know that is not. I've also learned that is not the healthiest avenue with which to go, because if you focus so much on getting bigger and getting stronger, then other parts of your life and your health end up falling by the wayside. So it's good to keep a good synergistic balance of both, say, like your mental health, your physical health, be it when it comes to like weight loss, building muscle, etc. You gotta learn to kind of balance all of those different aspects. So to elaborate on human health, so my perspective, I primarily have two options not two options, but I have two significant parts to it. One of them is that health originates primarily from within. So most people, most people, they work out because they want to look better naked. Like, women want to be lean, guys want to be jacked, and guys want to be jacked and muscular and lean. But typically it doesn't. But typically, when you start off that way, it doesn't usually. You might initially be motivated to be working out, but then eventually it doesn't last that long, and you end up falling off, and then it just it typically never results in anything. But in terms of counseling, something that I've been curious to learn more about is learning about exercise and its therapeutic benefits as a type of expressive therapy. I would also say that in terms of mental health, there's a lot more research on the physical benefits of exercise than there is on the psychological benefits. So I would say in terms of how exercise affects like the human brain and your nervous system, because in a sense, the brain it's the supercomputer of the human body, where it regulates. It has your physiological regulation, even like say from a hormonal standpoint. It controls human movement, where essentially, like when it comes to the muscular system, muscle does not move unless it has your nerves telling it what to do. And so when it comes to producing and processing certain impulses or information, understanding how that leads to action is crucial. And then I would even say from within, we talk about self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-efficacy. There's a lot of things that talk about vulnerability, where for most people, they might usually they will say, I want to work out because I want to be healthier, I want to lose some weight, I want to look better. There's something that they're not necessarily, at least as far as I can tell, usually not something that they're not satisfied with. But in reality, being healthy can result from, it could say, I want to get, say, like my A1C levels down from someone who may be diabetic, or they might be someone who is a little bit on the it might be I'll say they're a little bit on the older side. They're of the elderly, and they're wanting to just maintain their autonomy and independence. So being healthy, being healthy is a very generic term, but when you look at how it generates from within, when you are able to be open when you're able to be open and realistic with why you want to start working out, that can have a vast amount of benefits on your self confidence and your self esteem, especially. But at the same time, health is also multidimensional, and at least to me, what I mean by that is health is not just physically or mentally, or dare I say even socially, with like the people that you're around, the relationships that you have developed. It is like everything in your life plays a role in your health. So it could be the types of exercise, it could be the modality of exercise you're involved with, whether it could be if you're just doing just cardio or doing only weight training or doing only, say, like I'm just going to say plyometrics or yoga. The human health is something that is very intertwined, where it's not just there's so many different elements that you kind of have to, again, you have to just find a balance with. So for the future, for future topics, I would say, for me, I want to see human health from a psychological. I want to view human health from a psychological perspective, where I would say like some topics I'm personally curious about would be like nutrition and mental cognition. People, obviously you've heard the age old phrase of, you are what you eat, but can nutrition affect how you think? Can it affect can it affect can it affect symptoms of like common mental disorders? I would say like anxiety and depression. How can exercise mediate and limit and even like manage some of those symptoms? I would say even like body image and perception of self, like understanding how like exercise can affect how you perceive and interpret yourself. And again, going back to even just self-esteem, self-confidence, self-efficacy, all of that is coming from the self and learning about yourself and understanding how we can improve on those qualities and make things better from an individual standpoint. And in terms of future content, this list is not final, but these are just some things I'm considering is like how-to instructional videos. So like if there's a certain exercise you'd like to see me, you'd like to see me demonstrate, or maybe there might be a certain technique or approach that you'd like to see me go in depth in and talk about, I can do that. I will say having Q&A videos for just like individual questions, whether it be regarding like mental or psychological health, or I would say even just life. It's just anything about life itself. And then leading into that, even just self-help and personal development content, because simply put, my goal is to help people as much as possible, my goal is to help people as much as possible, and in any way that I'm able to. So being able to offer anything that is of like the self-help or personal development category, I think that's what I'm going to be primarily focusing on. But if anyone has any ideas on what kind of content I should produce, I'd be glad to make something based around other topics as well. So I hope you all enjoyed that. I apologize. It was a lot longer than I'd like it to be, but I also believe that I personally think this provides a good amount of background in terms of who I am, where my perspective's at, and at least what I'm planning on doing and what I'm planning on doing and where I plan to go with the channel moving forward. But at the same time, I'm always open to ideas. So if you have any questions or concerns, just you can send me a private message or let me know in the comments below. Thank you.